Okay, everyone. So thanks to Naomi for being the only one to tell me that I was doing things wrong. Kudos to you, Naomi. I'm realizing that I clicked a wrong link on the last one, so I'm just double checking here. I click here and I click on a pop-up. Okay, now it is showing on my other screen. So I think it should show when I record. Sounds like I was just talking through things and certain pop-ups weren't showing. That kind of happens when you do share screen, but you don't do the entire screen. So I guess I just did the share window kind of thing. So I can talk in this direction. I just did share window when I should have done share entire screen. So a bummer on my end, and I'm sorry. So come to class with any questions that you have. Maybe Naomi's the only one that watched the lecture. I'm sure that's not true because I've talked to a couple of you. But I want to go through a couple tips. Okay, so this final thing, we're going to be selecting one of our colors, and we're going to create a rendering. So there's going to be a couple of things stylistically that I'm going to do that I'm just going to show you how to do them, and you may or may not want to do them. Or well, I guess you'll take your rendering and try to make it as realistic as you want, and it might be different for yours or might be a similar strategy. But so I'm going to start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of refine my line work on this design a little bit. And then I'm going to do some simple shading and some simple light work. So I'm going to start by changing this baseline to more of a drop shadow. So what I did, okay, and I think you're seeing this, I just changed the profile of the line. So maybe I'll go a little bit slower. So I had the regular line, I went into stroke and changed profile from uniform to width profile 1. And I'm gonna get this and I'm gonna click Control Shift left bracket, or if you're on Mac, it would be Command. I guess if I ever forget to say Command instead of Control, just know that if I say Control, it's Command if you have a Mac. Okay, so I have this line underneath selected, and I'm just making it a little bit thicker, so that you can see it. I'm just pretending like it's a straight drop shadow essentially. So I'm gonna bring it under kind of my furthest point in the heel, a little bit past my furthest point in the toe, sending it to the back. And then I'm just gonna lower the opacity a little bit, so that it feels like my heel is dropping this little shadow underneath. And it looks like my materials are kind of transparent there, so it's coming through a bit. But I'm going to adjust that a little bit later. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a baseline around my whole project, just to like kind of embolden it a little bit. Well, I'm going to do a little edit here. I'm going to change the stroke, just the stitch here. This is just an errant line. So I'm going to make this just smaller. It's actually, I can't see. Okay. Something like that is good. I'm gonna make it a little more stitch-like and bring them a little bit closer even still. So I can see. And then there's some other things you can adjust. Just so you can adjust this, these gaps. Okay, I actually don't like that at all. Going to 0 here and go back to this one. I'm gonna make these bigger. Now that this one made them closer. I'm gonna do a little bit closer. I'm gonna go back. I just made them thick so that I could see them past this line because it's kind of being covered. Anyways, so I mean, now that looks a little bit more realistic, like a stitch. So here we're making when we're doing a rendering, we're gonna try and make it as accurate as possible. So I'm just doing little things like curving out this shape because there really shouldn't be any actual like perfect 90-degree angles, right? Everything's got a little curve there to it. I'm actually going to refine this a little bit too, just because we're really getting picky. Oh, didn't like that. I don't like that. Actually, just refining the bottom. Okay. So I'm going to do a little trick. So I'm going to click the selection tool. So not direct select, just the whole selection. I'm going to grab my whole object, not the drop shadow. And I'm going to do copy and paste. So this is kind of a trick to get your full outline without having to do it on your own. So I'm going to do copy and then Control C and Control F, paste in place. And I'm going to do Control Shift right bracket to bring it to the front. Control Shift right bracket. Then I'm going to use this tool called the Shape Builder. We've used it before to do our patterning. I'm going to make this into just one shape, so you can watch. All right, so I'm adding everything together. So the plus is clicked on the arrow and we'll just keep it there. So I'm just going to go through all of my patterns and join them all together. And sometimes can be a little bit finicky, but let's see if that worked. So I'm going to click out of it and just change tools. I went to just track select. All right. Okay. So these aren't intersecting. So it didn't change them for me. That's how when you use the shape builder tool, the shapes have to intersect. You can kind of see it in the little picture there. The shapes have to intersect to join each other, essentially. So this you may think is a little bit too much to do, and that's okay. You don't need to do this, but this is just my trick of like a fast way of joining everything. So now what I did was I did use the plus tool. So the plus tool adds anchor points. It's also right here, add anchor point tool. And then I grabbed my part and I'm pulling it over this upper that I made and with the shape tool. You can see these through the whole thing because because there's a funny tool here. So this is what it really looks like. Just a random line. Okay. So maybe that's easier to see. All right, so I dragged my heel into this upper so that I can, again, I'm going to use the shape builder tool and make this into one piece. Okay, so oh, and it looks like we've got to do something similar here. I'm just going to extend this shape builder is Shift M also if you want to do the quick command. Okay, so what I did is I essentially made the silhouette of my shoe. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send it to the back. And so right now what I'm doing is kind of like a play on line weight. And so it helps you. So what I did is I grabbed this, I made it one full shape, and then I increased the stroke. You can see the back is a lot bigger. Just watch as I throw it to the back. So I did Control Shift left bracket, and I moved it to the back. So now it's almost like a little Illustrator-y. Okay, something weird happened here. Oh, well, the black line is actually, okay. So I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna grab, so you're just gonna do Control V. So you can see the overhang here on my stroke was a little bit too big. So what you can do is you can click on your stroke button and align where the how it goes around the object. See how that looks when I, oh, but I'm not selected on the right thing. Okay, so this is the, go right here. Now it puts it all on the outside, okay? So now I want to affect the color when can everyone see, I guess, so it was like that. I click stroke, and then we can send it so that it's all around the frame of the stroke. And I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so you could see kind of what it does. So it gives us an outline to our rendering. This is way too big, obviously, but it's just a way where you can outline your whole shoe, and then it will differentiate it a little bit from the line weight of like the material parts in here. And sometimes we can even just like decrease these as much as we want. So it's kind of like personal preference as far as line weight and what you want to show. But okay, so that's how you get a line around the whole border. Maybe that was a little bit too long. We're just freewheeling over here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is you can add some individual shadowing to each pattern piece. So I'm going to start by doing this little heel structure. So what I'm going to do is my favorite command, Control C, Control F, to copy the copy in place, and I'm going to take off the border. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be playing with light on this. So we're going to go to the gradient tool. And we're going to change this color tile on top to a gradient. And you can kind of play with this how you like. So let's just pretend that the light source is coming in this way as we think about our product. Light will hit different materials and different shapes and different ways. But you can see, so we've got this shadowy or gradient figure over our normal brown heel. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to start off, we can just go straight to the opacity and kind of play with that. I think I want to keep it at 100 though. And I'm just going to play with different ways that it sits on the material. So I think multiply is pretty good. So you can see under the heel here, it's getting a little bit darker. Light's coming in right here. It's a little bit darker in the lower portion. Something really nice about this is that we can edit the gradient as well. So this is the gradient tool over here in the right bar. Remember, I'm using the Essentials Classic. If you're on a different format, like Essentials will look different. I think Essentials Classic is the best just because it is very visual as far as placement of all the tools. Some gradient tools over here. We can do different things. We can you can see it changing right here. Some of these little anchor points. We can move the black like that. We can move the light this way. And it gives you a lot of freedom to edit. You can also do it in real time right next to the product. If you click Edit Gradient, you can even shift and rotate it if you want the light for some reason to be coming from underneath the shoe. So there's a lot of, oops. I mean, you can grab this and move it a little bit. You can use these angles right here to do as well. You can also switch to radial gradient, which a lot of people use and which we'll use on the upper. But from there, you can change the size and the shape so that it does different things. So play with the gradient tool to your preference. Actually, like how it's working right now. So there's that gradient. I'm going to kind of do a similar process on each pattern. So this is taking up the whole piece. I'm just going to do Control C, Control F, and it will just be on top of this pattern. So the pattern piece here will still stay in the same spot. I'm going to change the opacity to just normal so that we can see the change. On this one, I am going to do a radial gradient, so this circular one, and I'm gonna edit it, but I'm gonna go over here. So you can see there's darken. I'm gonna do multiply. Let's see, we can test a couple other ones. Color burn. Yeah, kind of interesting, but I'm gonna stick with multiply, and I'm just gonna lower the opacity a little bit. Lower it just a little bit more. Okay. So then I'm gonna edit my gradient, and then from here you can just kind of edit the tool. So think of how light might refract off a shoe, and the different shaping. You can even sometimes it doesn't want to be your friend. Let's see. Oops. So you can mess with the size, placement. How do you move it? It's not this square. Okay, well, this is just changing its placement anyways. So you can see, I'm gonna deselect for a second. So you can see how it kind of added a little bit of shaping here, almost like uh, a protruding instep or something like that. Some other things you can do. So that's a gradient tool. I'm gonna do it on this one as well, and just because we've done it, and then I'm gonna show you one other method. So I'm gonna jump back to gradient. I'm gonna do this style, a little bit simpler, easier to edit. I'm gonna go to multiply. Um, I'm gonna change the angle a bit. And then if you ever need to click out of something, the easy thing is to just do direct select or V, like clicking out of a tool. Now I'm just gonna, so you can see how editing that changes the features a little bit. All right. So I'm gonna pause here. I'm gonna stop this recording and come back.